Previously, you were looking right about that tree there, and you could see the edge of the greenhouse where I panned around before. And this is what I'll consider to be the main drainage. We started on this last summer. So this is drainage rock. Underneath it is a non-woven landscape fabric. I would recommend a 4 foot wide. I have a Power Wagon, which the wheels are a little over around 3 feet wide. So this made it a little bit difficult. You get an idea as I'm walking through this drainage, and it's relatively dry right now, that everything has recovered quite nicely. But this is all done by hand. Here we have a split that goes from another drainage by our apple trees that comes down compared to the main drainage over here. So a couple $100, a couple young college students, myself, a Power Wagon, a couple different shovels, friends' shovels, a couple other buckets, also a new bridge. So this is all roughly around 3 to 4 feet wide, depending on the situation. Here, a little bit of a problem in terms of getting the right slope. So you can see that we've got a little bit of algae growing after our big rains that we've had. Trying a couple little things here in terms of putting things down the middle. Now we get to the end here where we did last year and where I started this year. So you can start to see a difference in terms of the sides of the drainage and where I've had to walk or shovel. Had to provide, once I built the bridge, a little bit of access from the main part of the yard to be able to get the Power Wagon in, which I'll show you in the pile of rocks here in a little bit. Here I got a little bit tight, and you can see a couple of the Power Wagon wheel marks on the side over here. So make sure whatever you're using to transport, mechanical or otherwise, that you plan for that in advance. This is now the 4 foot versus a 3 foot. You can also see I did a little bit of demuck side here with some straw. We have a hound dog that does like to get mucky and wear black socks. This is the more recent stuff. You can see a couple of the useful tools, little Wi-Fi radio, rake, hoe, water, shovel, bug bandana, ball peen hammer, sharpen your shovels, always a good thing. So here we have a transition between what I have for the actual drainage rock, and you can get an idea now of the fabric that's rolled out here. So this is a 100-foot roll. It's actually a Scott's I got from Ace. You can also get them from, in our case, we could get it from our local concrete supply that also does drainage tiles and things like that. They might stock something very similar in different widths. So typically it's a combination of a round point shovel, because I have a lot, as you can see here, a lot of trees. So round point shovel to take care of a lot of the initial work. And then you can see how flat this is. I also ran into clay. So down here, you'll see the difference between the clay that I have versus the top, which is the muck or topsoil. You'll see various piles on the side here, simply finding a place to put it. So once I've done the round point work, which is the messy part here at the end, I'll come through with the square shovel and go ahead and clean that up. I'm using a level as a combination of width. So this is a 3 foot level, and I would like to have this with a couple inches on each side so that the wheels will fit, and then also I'll have a fold of the fabric up the sides. Previous spring, actually 2 springs ago, when we had our runoff, we get somewhere between 200 and 300 inches of snow here, so we have runoff that comes down this hill. I used survey flags to figure out where the drainage is. These are the ones that I've collected as I've done my work. So you can see a big left-hand turn here as we go up. So this is what I was dealing with and am dealing with now. So a lot of things that need to be pulled out, cut up, and then ultimately I will be going underneath that fence there and not worrying about things on the other side as well. So now I'm going to take you through a couple of useful tools to be able to make this happen when you are trying to do something like this by hand. So loppers and a hatchet for a lot of the roots. A couple of these you can see are sticking out at various points along the edges here. These typical yellow ones. Here's one from the edge of a tree that I had to hack out a little bit. This is the polar bear. This is used to pull out using this grip portion here at the front. So I'll come around here. This opens up and then it closes and then has a lever point. So this is made in Canada, custom made by Polar Bear. Very incredibly useful tool, especially in the Northwoods. I had to use some blocking because it's so mucky it will actually sink into the dirt. Ball peen hammer to sharpen it and take care of dings in my shovels. And a hoe. I have another shovel to scrape things off. A pair of channel lock pliers to pull roots out with, which is much easier than doing it by hand because you can get better grip. Typical rake, be able to scrape things down a little bit on the flat side as well. Since I was working through very wet portions of the year, somewhere we had 2 inches, 1.5 inches, quite a few bouts of big rain, I used these rolled up. This is actually a different landscape fabric. Inside of that is a lower row of rocks and some straw, and so that gets placed across the middle of the drainage so that the muck that gets run off from the stuff that's up above doesn't start to get into all your nice clean drainage rocks. One of the constraints that we were working with is the fact that this is the major point of ingress and egress out of our yard. And so this gate is our limiting factor in terms of doing things from a manual basis so that we don't have to go and undo the beautiful garden out front along with all of the cedar fencing here or the 6-foot chain link that goes around. And that's where that drainage that I started the drainage video starts, over there. What then became the useful feature in all of this, or probably the most useful tool, happens to be over here, and it's known as the DR Power Wagon. So my dad had one of these in Colorado, and we happened to see one for sale used, and we decided this would be a good idea. It happens to fit with about 2 inches to spare. So it has a Briggs & Stratton engine. It has various forward and reverse. So basically you've got is a wagon, a wheelbarrow that has 2 powered wheels and a spinning wheel on the back to allow to maneuver it. It is the ability to dump. So you go ahead and load it and then go ahead and dump it when you get done. So this is what's left of the 10 tons of drainage rock that I got from a local supplier. Continuing to work through this by hand with a shovel, loading up that bucket, and then driving that through the gate out to the various drainage spots and then spreading that as we go forward. So it's a lot of work, but it is turning out to be very useful and also helped a lot in the spring with the drainage that we already have in the summer. And we have now got ourselves just a little bit more to go, and hopefully we'll have this thing wrapped up.